We are all gathered here, Mr. Tushman continued, taking off his glasses and using them to point at all of us in the audience. All your families, friends, and teachers to celebrate not only your achievements of this past year, Beecher Middle Schoolers, but your endless possibilities. When you reflect on this past year, I want you to look at where you are now and where you've been. You've gotten a little taller, a little stronger, a little smarter. I hope. Here some people in the audience chuckled. But the best way to measure how you've grown isn't by inches or the number of laps that you can run around the track or even your grade point average, though those things are important to be sure. It's what you've done with your time, how you've chosen to spend your days, and whom you have touched this year. That, to me, is the greatest measure of success. There's a wonderful line in a book by J.M. Barrie, and no, it's not Peter Pan, and I'm not going to ask you to clap if you believe in fairies. Here, everyone laughed again. But in another book by J.M. Barrie called The Little White Bird, he writes, he started flipping through a small book on the podium until he found the page that he was looking for, and then he put on his reading glasses. Shall we make a new rule of life? Always to try to be a little kinder than is necessary. Think about that. Here Mr. Tushman looked up at the audience. Kinder than is necessary, he repeated. What a marvelous line, isn't it? Kinder than is necessary. Why I love that line, that concept, is that it reminds me that we carry with us as human beings not just the capacity to be kind, but the very choice of kindness. And what does that mean? How is that measured? You can't use a yardstick. It's like I was saying just before, it's not like measuring how much you've grown in a year, and it's not exactly quantifiable, is it? How do we know that we've been kind? What is being kind anyway? He put on his reading glasses again and started flipping through another small book. There's another passage in a different book I'd like to share with you, he said, if you'll bear with me while I find it. Here we go. In Under the Eye of the Clock by Christopher Nolan, the main character is a young man who is facing some extraordinary challenges. And there's this one part where someone helps him, a kid in his class. On the surface, it's a small gesture, but to this young man, whose name is Joseph, it's, well, if you'll permit me. He cleared his throat and read from the book. It was at moments such as these that Joseph recognized the face of God in human form. It glimmered in their kindness to him. It glowed in their keenness. It hinted in their caring. Indeed, it caressed in their gaze. He paused and took off his reading glasses again. It glimmered in their kindness to him. He repeated, smiling, such a simple thing, kindness, such a simple thing. A nice word of encouragement given when needed, an act of friendship, a passing smile. He closed the book, put it down, and leaned forward on the podium. Children, what I want to impart to you today is an understanding of the value of that simple thing called kindness. And that's all I want to leave with you today. And I know I'm kind of infamous for my verbosity. Here everybody laughed again. I guess he knew that he was known for his long speeches. Hey, now we know what that word means, right? But what I want you, my students, to take away from your middle school experience, he continued, is the sure knowledge that in the future you make for yourselves, anything is possible. If every single person in this room made it a rule that wherever you are, whenever you can, that you will try to act a little kinder than is necessary, then the world would really be a better place, And if you do this, if you act just a little kinder than is necessary, someone else, somewhere, someday may recognize in you, in every single one of you, the face of God. He paused and shrugged, or whatever politically correct spiritual representation of universal goodness you happen to believe in, he added quickly, smiling, which got a lot of laughs and loads of applause, especially from the back of the auditorium where the parents were sitting. Wow, that is quite the speech. You guys remember that saying that's on my wall in the classroom? When given the chance of being right or being kind, choose kind. And so choose kind. And that's what he's saying today, I think, in his message in this graduation ceremony. He's trying to implant into their hearts the gift of kindness, and how far we can never even know the magnitude that it goes. Kindness is not something that's tangible, not something that's measurable necessarily. You may not think that you're making a difference by simply being a good friend or giving a smile when somebody's lonely, or if they're having a rough day, instead of adding to that and getting upset with them, just kind of letting them cool down and say, hey man, it's going to be all right. It's okay, just shake it off. You'll have a better day tomorrow. Just a little smile, just a pat on the back, a quick little joke, something. Then just that's what it means. Being kinder than is necessary. I mean, it's easy for people, and it's quite natural for you to do what's expected of you. And that's what it means, necessary. What's expected of you. Well, your teachers expect that you're going to show respect, right? But you can even go beyond that, and not just respect, but actually stretching yourself to look for opportunities to show kindness at any chance. Kinder than is necessary. I love it. Okay, moving on. Awards. Here we go, guys. We're almost at the end. Okay, hold on. Awards. I liked Mr. Tushman's speech, but I have to admit, I kind of zoned out a little during some of the other speeches. I tuned in again as Miss Rubin started reading off the names of the kids who had made the high honor roll, because we were supposed to stand up when our names were called. So I waited and listened for my name as she went down the list alphabetically. Reed Kensley, Maya Markowitz, August Pullman. I stood up. Then when she finished reading off the names, she asked us all to face the audience and take a bow, and everyone applauded. I had no idea where in that huge crowd my parents might be sitting. All I could see were the flashes of light from people taking photos, and my parents waving at their kids. I pictured my mom waving at me from somewhere, even though I couldn't see her. Mr. Tushman came back to the podium to present the medals for academic excellence, and Jack was right. Jimena Chin won the gold medal for overall academic excellence in the 5th grade, and Charlotte won the silver one. Charlotte also won a gold medal for music. Amos won the medal for overall excellence in sports, which I was really happy about, because ever since the nature retreat, I considered Amos to be like one of my best friends in school. But I was really, really thrilled when Mr. Tushman called out Summer's name for the gold medal in creative writing. Wow, they give it a lot of medals, huh? I saw Summer put her hand over her mouth when her name was called, and when she walked up onto the stage, I yelled, "Woohoo, Summer!" as loudly as I could, though I don't think she actually heard me. After the last name was called, all the kids who'd just won awards stood next to each other on stage, and Mr. Tushman said to the audience, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to present to you this Beecher Prep School Scholastic Achievers. Congratulations to all of you." I applauded as the kids on stage bowed. I was so happy for Summer. "The final award this morning," said Mr. Tushman after the kids on stage had returned to their seats, "is the Henry Ward Beecher Medal to honor students that have been notable for exemplary in certain areas throughout the school year. Typically, this medal has been our way of acknowledging volunteerism or service to the school. I immediately figured Charlotte would get this medal because she organized the coat drive this year, so I was kind of zoned out a bit again, and I looked at my watch, 10:56. I was getting hungry for lunch already. Henry Ward Beecher was, of course, the 19th century abolitionist. I can never pronounce that word. Abolitionist. Oh, and fiery sermonizer for human rights, and after whom the school was named. Mr. Tushman was saying when I started paying attention again. While reading up on his life in preparation for this award, I came upon a passage that he wrote that seemed particularly consistent with the themes I touched on earlier, themes I've been ruminating upon all year. Not just the nature of kindness, but the nature of one's kindness, the power of one's friendship, the test of one's character, the strength of one's courage. And here's the weirdest thing, that Mr. Tushman's voice cracked a bit, like he got all choked up. He actually cleared his throat and took a big sip of water. I started paying attention for real now, because to what he was saying. What do you think that means, guys? He was all choked up. He was getting, he was crying a little bit, right? So whatever he's about to say is something really from his heart. The strength of one's courage, he repeated quietly, nodding and smiling. He held up his right hand like he was counting off. Courage, kindness, friendship, character. These are the qualities that define us as human beings and propel us on occasion to greatness. And this is what the Henry Ward Beecher Medal is about, recognizing greatness. But how do we do that? How do we measure something like greatness? Again, there's no yardstick for that kind of thing. And how do we even define it? Well, Beecher actually had an answer for that. He put on his reading glasses again, leafed through a book, and started to read. Greatness, wrote Beecher, lies not in being strong, but in the right using of strength. He is the greatest whose strength carries up the most hearts. I'm going to say that again. He is the greatest whose strength carries up the most hearts. And again, out of the blue, he got all choked up. He put his 2 index fingers over his mouth for a second before counting. He is the greatest, he finally continued, whose strength carries up the most hearts by the attraction of his own. Without further ado, this year I'm very proud to award the Henry Beecher Medal to the student whose quiet strength carried up the most hearts. So will August Pullman please come up here to receive this award? Whoa! Floating. People started applauding before Mr. Tushman's words actually registered in my brain. I heard Maya, who was next to me, give me a little happy scream when she heard my name, and Miles, who was on the other side of me, patted my back. Stand up, get up, all the kids around me, and I felt lots of hands pushing me upward out of my seat, guiding me to the edge of the row, patting my back, high-fiving me. Way to go, Augie. Nice going, Augie. I even started hearing my name being chanted, Augie, Augie, Augie. And I looked back and I saw Jack leading the chant, fists in the air. Smiling signaled for me to keep going. And Amos shouting through his hands, woohoo, little dude. And then I saw Summer smiling as I walked up past her row. And when she saw me look at her, she gave me a little secret thumbs up and mouthed a silent cool beans to me. I laughed and shook my head. I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. I think I was smiling. Maybe I was beaming. I don't know. As I walked up the aisle toward the stage, all I saw was a blur of happy, bright faces looking at me and hands clapping for me, and heard lots of people yelling things at me. You deserve it, Augie. Good for you. I saw my teachers in the aisle seats, Mr. Brown, Miss Petosa, Mr. Roach, Mrs. Antanabi, and Nurse Molly, and all the others. They were cheering for me too, woohooing and whistling. I felt like I was floating. It was so weird, like the sun was shining full force on my face and the wind was blowing. As I got closer to the stage, I saw Miss Rubin waving at me in the front row, and then next to her was Mrs. G, who was crying hysterically, a happy crying, smiling and clapping the whole time, as As I walked up the steps of the stage, the most amazing thing happened. Everyone started standing up, not in the front row, so the whole audience suddenly just got to their feet, whooping and hollering for me.